Okay, work has begun on the holsters for our sidearms. As you can see, I've got one of my interstellar regulator bashes there. Working with 1/4-inch what the foam, or 4mm what the foam rather, not 6mm, but 4mm, which should be sturdy enough to hold up for what we're doing. What I've basically done is marked out how deep the holster's got to be. Took my Dremel and cut a groove that I'll use to glue in both of the pieces for mine, as well as the channel to get at the grip. Now on my son's beefy little Nerf Ultra here, it's a bit bigger than my regulators, so having to go from a slightly different angle on the what the foam, but it's going to be the same idea. I've marked off where I need to cut my grooves. I'll cut my grooves, go heat treat them, and then start gluing these things up. Alright, setting aside the holsters for a bit, I am working on a second helmet. And what I've got here is all of the foam that I'm going to use for it. This is based off the Punish Props DIY Prop Shop pattern. That's going to be the Mohawk piece. The only things not going to be used from those patterns are the earpieces and the back vent, which I printed in 3D a while ago. But there's the foam ready to go. Well, it may look a little funny right now. It's definitely got some seam filling that needs to be done. And of course the front end will come into shape better once the visor's in place to hold it. But core assembly of the helmet Mark II is done. I still have to put those trim strips on, as well as the Mohawk strip. But I want to address some of the seams first. All in all, it's coming out pretty well, at least as well as the original did. If for no other reason than I've done this before. Of course, I'll need to smooth that up with my Dremel, but, you know, it's coming. All right. Foam assembly on the new helmet has been completed. I have deliberately decided to keep some of the seams visible to help kind of set this one apart from every other Mandalorian style helmet out there. The darker gray sections you're seeing here are foam clay, specifically the foam mo from Cosplay Apprentice, which I've used to fill the seams that I don't want to keep. I've also gone in and aligned in where the custom earpieces and the custom back vent are going to go, which is why I haven't worried about filling that seam. But all in all, there's a little bit of cleanup to do here and there. But we are getting really close to final assembly and then getting some plaster dip on this thing. Okay, seam work is basically done at this point. The white areas I went over with some quick seal, smoothed out with water in my finger. I now have the resin earpieces and back piece glued into place. I may put a detail piece up here. I haven't decided for sure yet. But at this point, we are just about ready to start painting this thing. Alright, out here on the porch, spraying in the sunlight. And what you can see here is one very gunmetal base Mandalorian helmet. Whole thing's was given 2 coats of black Plastidip, and then the coat of flat cold iron that I've been using on the rest of the armors. I'm happy to say that the seams don't look too shabby. They're still a little obvious, but I'm not that worried about it. All in all, this thing's ready for detail paint as soon as this paint decides to dry. Alright, excuse the mess. It's been kind of a busy weekend, but I now have 2 completed gun belts, single holster for my son, dual holsters for myself. In mine, I looped the excess over, reinforced it with some Sintra. Also ran a Velcroed strip through the bottom, reinforced with a little more of the 4mm What the Foam. In the case of my son's holster, I ran the strap straight through, reinforced with EVA or What the Foam, and the same trick on the hip belt, or thigh belt, I guess I should say, with the 4mm What the Foam to reinforce the area where it's sliding. Those are done. Soon the helmet will be done. Alright. As you can see, I've got the new version of the chest piece out again. I've made one adjustment. The Mandalorian diamond there has been replaced by a piece I printed off from Thingiverse. Painted it in the well, I painted it with the base color that I used on the rest of the suit, but I did not black coat it first. That's the reason it's a little lighter color. I also went in with a transparent red to color the insets there. But all in all, I think it adds to the effect. I like it. Alright, what we have here is the final piece to the helmet, the T-Visor. I've heat formed it with my heat gun. This time I did the whole thing rather than waiting until after I cut it. I masked it off with some painter's tape, drew on the same template I used for the previous helmet, and cut her down with a cutoff wheel on my Dremel. At this point, it's about ready to install. Okay, as you can see, the visor is in place and reflecting the rest of the room around it. That completes the new helmet. I'm really happy with how this thing's turned out. It's got some differences between it and the old one, but all in all, you know, I could easily wear either helmet, but I much prefer the look and feel of the new one, just on the grounds of it feels more mine because of the additions I made to it and the slight changes I made in how it was finished off. But either way, I'm very happy, and we're pretty close to having the whole suit done here. Alright, as I've been working on the revised versions of things like my helmet and my chest plate, I got looking at the original version of my guns. Now, from the side here, it looks fairly decent. But you start looking at the back and across the top, the seam line is terrible. Same goes coming across the bottom here. So I have gone in using the same template as before and done 2 new versions of the same gun. In this case, I used 4 layers of EVA foam. The core is made up of 2 layers of 10 millimeter, and the exterior is 2 layers of 6. Unlike with this one, these were cut rough shape and then trimmed down to size after I got all 4 layers glued together. Barrels were glued in between the 2 10 millimeter layers. And the other big difference was most of the line work here was done with a razor knife and a heat gun, whereas this was all done with my soldering iron. The end result here is a much better looking prop. I also didn't go with the black wash that wiped off terribly here, or the ton of silver dry brushing. I only did a minimum of weathering in slightly different colors. But all in all, those work better with the new versions of everything else than the originals do. So those are what will be going to the con. Alright, after trying on the full kit, came to the realization that this plate was actually a bit too short. So, went in, using the same Sintra over foam method, cut a new piece of foam and a new piece of Sintra to glue to the bottom edge of this to extend the plate. It's contact cemented to the back, so it's definitely not going anywhere. And now, I definitely don't have a lot of my abdomen unprotected. Alright, at this point, we have been to FanX with the armor builds. Found a few things that need to be worked on for the next round, but all in all, we were very happy with the results. Going to throw some completed stills at the end of this, and thank those of you who followed along through the very lengthy and delay-filled build process.